You are listening to episode 71 of Back to Here with Sarita, the new Manifesting Paradigm podcast. And in this episode, you are in for a soothing treat. Not only does my guest Diane have the most eloquent way of sharing with me that the journey of healing can lead to deep understanding of oneself, but she also has a very calming demeanor, which is absolutely perfect for this podcast. Even if you personally have not gone through some kind of relationship breakup, this episode will definitely provide a space for you to reconfirm the power of your heart, and that alignment and leading into our true authentic selves will help create more meaningful experiences. My guest Diane Beck is a British therapist, coach, and creator of soul signal mapping with over 15 years of experience helping women realign their lives and reconnect with who they truly are. She specializes in guiding women, especially those over 35, through the hidden heartbreaks of loss, breakups, and repeating painful patterns, revealing how these moments can become powerful catalysts for transformation on her signature program, Aligned Women, which heals heartbreaks and rapidly realigns women back on track and purpose. A trained hypnotherapist and NLP master with trainings in neuroscience, Diane combines science with spirituality and energy work. Her signature program has helped countless women move beyond masking their pain, breaking free from unhealthy cycles, and step back into alignment with their purpose and power. By tuning into the body's somatic signals and bridging the unconscious mind with the soul's deeper wisdom, Diane empowers women to switch back on as both healing and power machines. An expert guest on BBC Radio and UK, Diane has also worked with corporate organizations and individuals worldwide. Her mission is to show that heartbreak isn't an ending, it's the doorway to breakthrough and an incredible opportunity to create a life of authenticity, alignment, and joy. Make sure to grab a drink and snuggle in to listen to this very calming conversation. I'll see you in there. Hey there, I'm Sarita, and you're about to experience the modern approach to well-being, where you get to establish the best and most important relationship you will ever have, the one with yourself. I'm on a mission to help you declutter energy and reclaim your power so you can be a magnet to what you desire. If you're looking for the optimal blend of mindset and healing, you're in the right place. My goal in this podcast is to share tools, resources, and practices that will help you along your healing journey. I'm so excited to be here with you today, so welcome to Back to Here with Sarita. Let's get started. Hello, and welcome back to Here with Sarita, the new Manifesting Paradigm podcast. As you can see, I have an amazing guest. That is, if you're watching this on YouTube, if you're catching this on any other platform like Spotify or Apple, I have here Diane Beck. So thank you so much, Diane Beck, for being here on the podcast today.
Oh, it's an absolute pleasure, Sarita. Lovely to talk to you.
Be talking about things like overcoming heartbreak and overcoming breakups. So very much aligned with my own personal journey. Let's go ahead and jump in right away. I want you to share with my audience just a little background with kind of the work you're doing so they have an idea of what that is. And then also kind of what led you to do this work. What was the inspiration behind coming to this place?
Thank you. Well, first of all, I'm a therapist and coach and have been a therapist and coach for around 16 years. And I was a therapist and coach because I'd had earlier heartbreaks, which I'll kind of touch on. Because we're going to probably think and focus that heartbreak is purely about relationship and it's one of the symptoms. But I had a breakup that floored me out of nowhere, and I thought this was with my soulmate and I was completely in love. Like, all the flags were there, which I refused to look at because I was so invested. And a couple of weeks before we were about to move in together, he kind of ran and he told me on the phone from the other end of the country. And it left me homeless, spinning. I had nowhere to live. My car was breaking down. Because I was like thinking, well, I'm ditching all that because we're about to invest in this new place and the whole new life. And suddenly my life tipped upside down and I couldn't grieve until I found myself in a new place. And I remember being surrounded by bits of furniture And my friend who'd helped me move into this like last minute place, which turned out to be a real haven in the end, but it was a place I didn't know. And the thing that really broke me was the fact that my furniture wouldn't even fit up the small staircase of this old English cottage that I was like surrounded by like higgledy-piggledy broken life. It was like a real metaphor. It's like just broke me. And it was in these moments of just being on the floor. And I thought I knew how to deal with this with clients, and I'd been working a long time and I knew all of these therapeutic modalities and approaches. And I was trying to run a business and I thought I was all empowered. And what was inadvertently amazing about it, but not at the time, was that it completely broke me apart in a way that was like a bit of an earthquake, and all of this unhealed stuff, which I kind of like did the eye roll of surely not this again, like haven't I worked on this? But like the level to which I thought I'd worked on it was clearly not enough. And through this absolute pain, I was starting to see that the kind of way of working on it was just not enough. And I had to dig in. It took me about 3 years to really work out what was really going on. And the truth of it is that my life was completely out of alignment to my soul. And I'd felt so alone, abandoned by God, abandoned by spirit, like completely all this stuff which I hadn't even articulated to myself at the time. But I just felt so like rejected, not just by the partner, but from myself, from source, from like the whole thing was a huge metaphor. And I was really living through it. It was like super painful dark night of the soul stuff, like over and over, like on loop. And I had to really dig in, which leads me to what I created, which was this new technique for myself through learning how to speak to my soul. And I know that however this is going to sound to your listeners, but I feel like from talking to you, if they're in resonance with you, they're really going to get this, is that I had to learn how to really connect to myself at a deep, deep unconscious level, at soul level, via the heart. And I suddenly found like that my body was talking to me in these like somatic sensations that could unlock conversations. And as a hypnotist, I kind of used those ways to talk to myself. And it was just unlocking healing. And it was like unlocking these truths, which was really exciting for me. Thinking like, wow, where did that come from? And where does that wisdom come from? Which was quite moving. I was like, crikey, I've got this connection. And the short story on that is that I like, wow, this is the way. This is completely other level to what I'd been using before. And so I started to take women through it and then created, like it got faster and faster. Like it now kind of is down to like 6 to 10 weeks, but there's this 3-month container. And what took me 3 years is like this like 3-month process that I call like the aligned woman, like healing their heartbreak. And you go in through the heartbreak because that's when we're exposed and our mask is dropped. And we go in through that heartbreak chasm because our defenses are down, and it allows us to heal it. And that's what makes it quick, because we don't zip up anymore and our defenses are down. But this process is life-changing for women, and I'm extremely proud of it. And it's very new for me, and it's probably taken all of that pain and heartbreak over the years, and that final heartbreak that just really had to floor me, cut me off at the knees to kind of go, do you get it now? And I had to go through it to lead other women through it, which is what I'm now really, really passionate about.
That sounds like super powerful alchemizing work that you're doing. Thank you so much for that. And I heavily resonate with that story. I have similar experience. And for those of you that are listening and watching on the podcast, most likely you've been here for a little while, so you know that I have intentionally manifested the life that I'm living because it was post breakup. And that's been about 3.5 years now. So it was a second chance for me to recreate my lifestyle. And so I resonate so heavily with like the actual heartbreak and rediscovering myself and going through the process of a deep level self-love journey and discovering myself through that, rediscovering myself through that, because it was never lost, right? I don't love that you went through the experience, but I love that you have chosen to utilize that experience to alchemize it into an amazing program that I know is supporting a lot of other women through very similar things. So that's so wonderful.
I think it's the only way, right? Like, if we ignore it, I probably did ignore it for years. I went through so many different kinds of heartbreak. And I retrospectively looked back and they all had similar elements to this one. Like seeing my dad die in front of me when I was like 16 was a heartbreak, and that tipped my world upside down. And I buried that one, thought I was coping for the family. I was like the copeable one, and I went into my masculine, completely abandoned myself as a woman. It's a very odd thing, but retrospectively now I was like, wow, I became quite masculine, like a doer. I became the fixerer, of the family, and thinking that, I'm going to take the mantle of the, the father role in the family and the responsibility. Like looking back, going, oh my gosh, that when my ex did that, I can really thank him now. It's like, I know I said to you earlier, it's like a soulmate. It's kind of also redefined what I think soulmates are, in that I think they come in and go, do you know what? I'm going to be that person that makes sure you get that soul growth. I don't think it's like the happy clappy version that you see on the Instagram version of soulmates, I think. And so I'm so grateful that he played that role so well that I had to kind of finally learn it. And there's been like these, we've all had them, right? So the women that are listening to this, and you've clearly had that, and you've had this last 3 years of growth. Isn't that what we're here for? And I'd ignored it and buried down my first one and just went to college and launched into the career that I thought I was going to do, which was acting. And I thought, yeah, my life is sorted. That's what I'm going to go and do. My soul had other kind of like intentions for me. And it just kind of went on this journey. But at the time I thought, yeah, this is it. And I had to crack away from that and all these different heartbreaks over the years. That was the final one that was like, do you get it now? And I think when we get to this like second spring, as they call it as well in Asia, which is a beautiful term, but when women get to a certain age where they can finally see the patterns that they've been living, we get this amazing opportunity to just transcend into this
amazing
feminine, powerful wisdom keeper. When we alchemize it, we can then go into our wisdom keeping years. So I think it's really important that we use these opportunities of heartbreak in this, like 35 to 50 is a real important sweet spot. I say 50 because it can take someone more time to kind of get it's like bump into the furniture of life sufficiently enough to kind of go, I need to really realign here. And so I've seen like 35 to 50 is a real sweet spot time to go, okay, yeah, we need to dig in.
I love that. That sounds about right for me, because that was about the age when things came to the epiphany, right? You were talking about how there was a sense of being in awareness, but not necessarily allowing yourself to go there, and being in denial about it, even though bodily symptoms and other things like came forth from that. We have this misconception that heartbreak is happening just after a breakup, like just after a divorce, just after a romantic breakup. We think of that. And for me, just as a little example, I was in my 8-year relationship, yet in that relationship, I felt heartbroken for the majority of the time that I was in the relationship. So that leads me to understand from my own personal experience and my bodily symptoms, and it was like I couldn't articulate it, just like you said, you couldn't articulate certain things, but looking back at it retrospectively, I understand that I was heartbroken. So I want to know from you, just from your own personal experience and working with clients and being in this space for a while, what is your specific definition of heartbreak? What does that look like in your words?
Oh gosh, Sarita, just hearing you talk about that, it's an amazing example that you're like in a relationship and oh my gosh, and you're aware that you're heartbroken. That takes a lot of acceptance to see that, and that's probably easier retrospectively. I had that in my prior relationship where I was in it and he didn't want children with me, and that, my God, that was a heartbreak. I had to grieve that within the boundary of that relationship as well, because he already had children. He'd said at the beginning of the relationship, yeah, well, we can have kids. By the time we were like 8 years in, he changed his mind, and I was like, oh my Lord, that was hardcore for me too. So I've like had these heartbreaks, and that was one of the heartbreaks I've had over time. So yeah, it isn't always about relationship. It's about matter of the heart chakra. It is importance. And here's how I want to articulate it. As far as I understand it and have tracked, our soul comes through via the heart center. The meaningfulness of us is via this portal of the heart. So if you were to imagine, where would I be connecting if I was to really be connecting to the truth of myself? Where do I feel that? When I ask clients, to kind of navigate that, even just kind of initially, even if it's an alien concept, they always intuitively will say to me, it feels about here. Yeah. This area, this toroidal field of the heart center is so powerfully important. It is a matter of the heart that is unfulfilled and broken and not connected. So that can be loss of a career that felt like it gave identity. It can be loss of a child, loss of a perceived future you've attached to, like having children, which was a major pain for me. That was a massive grief that was also an incredible thing to go through retrospectively as well. But there's the loss of relationship, of course, because it's matter of the heart. So it's those things that feel so innately connected to some truth of us, and it's the attachment we have to it, that huge loss of what we've leaned into and piled our attachment onto, that can break the heart. The key to the healing of it is to come back to ourselves through the heart, which creates resilience, self-connection, deep inner strength, inner knowing, all the good stuff. But it's the broken heart is the key to come back to the heart. It's like piecing yourself back together, and nothing outside of you is going to do that. And it sounds like the worst thing in the world, but the worst thing in the world is the best thing in the world if you alchemize it. It's the worst thing in the world if you ignore it. It's the worst thing in the world if you try to anesthetize it from outside of you, which, I'm guilty of doing. And so when we try and push it away, anesthetize it, it's almost even more heartbreaking. It takes us further from ourselves. It's so powerful. It's just, I don't know anybody on the planet that wouldn't experience heartbreak of some description. And the commonality of that is, this is something so close and innately close to what is meaningful to you and your identity and feeling accepted on the planet, that if that feels lost all of a sudden, what it reminds you is that, no, I've got to accept myself. I've not lost anything. It's deep, deep, deep stuff.
You explained it so beautifully. I couldn't have said it better. Personally, feel like for me, I've been through many different heartbreaking experiences, and I love that you shared just examples of when it comes to identity, like our identity level. Transitioning from living in a city for 20 years is another example for me. Most recently, establishing friendships and my identity there, right? It was everything in my 20s and 30s, and leaving that and getting on the road and doing this nomadic lifestyle. I'm 4 months in. I would have to say the first 3 months was me going through a heavy grieving process. And I realized the heartbreak was something that you mentioned, is the heartbreak of what could have been. Because I came to San Diego with all these kind of visions, and I was right after graduating from university and going to a new city, wanting to restart a new life, I should say, in my 20s, wanting to conquer the world. That's what happens after we go through university. We just have all these like ideas of like, this is what I'm going to do. A lot of things transpired over those 20 years, beautiful things that have made me the evolved woman that I am now. And at the same time, there are certain aspects of that that I feel were heartbreaking in a way, because as I left, it was like what could have been with certain circumstances, situations, friendships, experiences, all those things that I don't want to say didn't work out, but were not meant to go into the next chapter that I'm now living. And so that's a form of heartbreak that is been with me these last 3 months, and I feel a lot more stabilized now from all that, because thank goodness I've had the tools and the resources to be able to support myself. And I've put a lot of energy and effort after my original breakup, my breakup when I was 39 years old, and going through that and laying the foundation for myself. You were talking about how you were a therapist and you had all these kind of modalities, and you were thinking to yourself like, wow, I should be like being able to get through this, right? And so from that personal experience, like what has been What has been kind of the fuel and the fire for you to make this from your journey and alchemizing it into something so much more bigger than maybe you even imagined it before?
What has been the fuel in the fire that has
Yeah.
caused me to alchemize it? I'm not sure. What I do know is that I feel like with every heartbreak, it's allowed me to realign and remember myself at a deeper level. The biggest, I suppose, I'm trying to work out how to honor and answer that question. I think the biggest fuel in the fire has been the biggest pains, because I kind of hit so many rock bottoms. I've had nowhere else to go but up. And it's like I've had some very dark thoughts and some very dark nights of the soul, even though I do what I do, which has been the most humbling, shocking thing, just because I'm completely transparent. It's that I also had to remember that in order to take women, and I've worked with men, of course, for the people, all over the world that have kind of like found me and worked with me in London and Manchester. I ran clinics. I had no shortage of other therapists' numbers when I was going through this, when nobody knew how to really help me. They just did the usual by rote. But what I had to learn how to do was take myself to those places so that I could guide people there and feel like I could hold them in those places. So I had to get over myself and get over the fact that I'm not supposed to be perfect. In fact, if anything, I have to be able to experience these pains so that I can empathize and appreciate the levels to which clients are going to go. I think it's been in any case, it's inordinately helpful for me to have gone to those places. And the fuel in my fire, is the realignment that happens when we reintegrate a learning. I'll tell you something actually, Sarita. Here's what I think it is. There was a couple of moments. There was one moment, I've got this sheepskin rug, and I was on the sheepskin rug, and it happened there. And I think it was one Christmas Eve, and I was spending it alone, of course, and not with my partner in this. And I was like, again, that was real tears for me. He was like, no, And I had a very, very powerfully spiritual moment, which I've had to also accept as the years have gone on. They've come in more and more and completely transformed how I perceive the world and myself and all kinds of energy and all kinds of things. And in the bath too, I get it a lot in water, is this connection at a deeper level to something that is bigger than me, that feels like purpose. And it's like tapping into a well. When you're aligned, it's like spiritual chiropractor. It's like spiritual realignment. If you can imagine,
Love that image.
putting yourself back in, and it feels like that. And I get these waves of just fortitude. It's like I just want to, I'm a warrior almost for women, and it is very much for the feminine. I've worked with so many men over the years, and that whole masculine thing that I was talking about before, but I kind of felt so much easier to click into a way of working and being that just wasn't true to myself. So the more the heartbreak was bringing me back to myself, and the more I connected to my feminine energy, and the more I realized, wow, I've got to go in, and I've got to go in via the heart. And I worked in water, which there's something about me working with water as well. It's extremely feminine for me. It helps me go in. It's tapping into this well for me, which gives me the fire. It's like as soon as you're aligned, and this goes for yourself too, you're getting this fire from refining yourself, Sarita, by the sounds of it. And when other people realign through their healing their heartbreak and it's like a remembering. It's not newness. And you touched on this earlier. It's like a self-remembering, realignment. When that happens and the energy flows, soul right the way through, and you're living life on purpose, nothing can stop you. And only then can you know what you really want. I also went through that thing with thinking I knew what I wanted, a bit like my early career, And I was good at it too. And I thought, that's it. Life's sorted. I think I know what's good for me. And clearly it wasn't right for me. It was extremely painful to kind of come away from it, but it wasn't good for me. It wasn't right for me. And the more I've become aligned, the more energy I've got. I feel like I'm aging younger. I feel like I've got, more power. It's funny how that happens too, is your body will let you know.
Yes.
You treat yourself better, you eat differently, you move the body differently, you crave different things because you're more in alignment. And the more in alignment you are, and then you know what you want.
Yes. You shared something so dynamic for me and something that I know a lot of women, and this segues perfectly into my next question, because we are conditioned as women to deny aspects of ourselves. We deny certain feminine parts of ourselves. I was just talking to one of my friends. She grew up in Puerto Rico, and she said for us girls growing up, just anything that had to do with our cycle, it was like, we don't talk about it. And so, like, very pushed down with something that's so bodily, something that how we can actually be syncing with planet Mother Earth. And so many of us are starting to awaken because there are other resources and things available for us. Sometimes people don't even have an awareness of being out of alignment. I sure didn't. Like, I was an insomniac. I was working 45, 50 plus hours a week. I was partying on the side. I was trying to do all these different things and not resting enough. So, for somebody that's going through this process and just kind of starting to waken up and experience themselves a little bit on a deeper level, because they'd be listening to this podcast and discovering more about themselves, when it comes to pretending to be okay and misalignment and things like that, what are some aspects that you have discovered from some of your clients, your own personal experiences, maybe some indicators, anything that you can share with us when it comes to this ability to get back? Like, I love how you said the spiritual chiropractor. That is a beautiful image, like to assist somebody in getting that back into a little bit of alignment.
Wow. Well, this is why age is such a help.
Sure is.
You know, we can look
Right.
back on the last 35 years or 40 years or, 49 years. But if you're in your 20s, it's tough. I don't know, like, so depending on what age you're listening to this, I want you to just consider how you know you're out of alignment is extremely difficult when you're in your comfort zone. As a trained lover of unconscious minds, hypnotist of many, many years, and I love unconscious minds so much. Because you're a healing machine, you're incredible. It's your best friend, and it beats your heart and breathes you. And it's the story. It's the interface between your soul and wisdom. It's like plugging into Mother Tree if you know how to do it. But if you're not listening to yourself and cutting yourself off at the neck and just functioning, like you were talking about, like the partying and the burnout, like that leads to burnout and all of that. I would say it's a classic early 30s, 20s rite of passage behavior, because you're learning your limits, you're learning your edges, and it's almost like you kind of like got to do that stuff, you know. You learn through experiential. It doesn't matter what anybody says, you're going to ignore it and say no thanks, and we have to learn experientially, so you're going to go through that stuff. But as a hypnotherapist coach, what I would say is we're all living in our own paradigm, and I want you to imagine it like a huge outer invisible to us bubble, or like a box where you're just, there's 6 sides to this box and you've created the box, but you don't realize you've created it, and you're living from within it. Another way to look at it is augmented reality glasses that we're seeing all over Apple on this place. This is quite a useful metaphor, because it really puts us in the game. And I want to imagine you've put like a DVD or you put a game on, and the game title is the deepest belief system you have about the soul and the self. So let's imagine somebody believes and has decided about themselves that they are unworthy, small, typical ones. It's always something that you are, and it's deeply buried, and it's out of awareness because it's in your blind spot. Carl Jung used to call it the shadow self, you know, and if you don't get to know it, you know, it's going to be created in your outer life, and you'll point to it and call it fate. You're creating it. So it's like you're putting in a DVD of a game and just going, right, this is the game I'm playing. And my job is to mirror and show clients, this is why your life is how it is. Because it's the foundational sponsoring energy and vibration underneath every perspective you could possibly have. Every filter that you have comes from the motherboard of that belief. So how you spot you're living from inside a negative one, because you'll have positive ones too, but from my work, I can take anybody off the street and put them in my office, and we'll find this negative paradigm. It'll be responsible for all of the surface level issues, the attachment issues, the pains, and all the stuff. And that's how you can tell, is what are the symptoms of my life at the surface, which is where the thinking mind lives, because it's a judgment filter that sits on the surface. What am I noticing consciously that I don't like? And maybe I've seen it before in my life. And you can sit with a pen and paper kind of thing, okay, what am I not happy about? Is my life where I want it to be that would expand my heart? Do I feel an expansion or contraction? Is my life going the way I want it to go? Am I bumping into the furniture of life? Am I bumping into the edges of this paradigm? That's when you experience heartbreak. That's why heartbreak is amazing, because it rip tears that trance for a while. And it's about knocking people out of trances, not putting them in trances. Like, we're walking around in that trance, totally on autopilot. Things like 96% of the day we're in trance, and only a very small part of the day we're in consciousness. And the thinking mind time travels. It thinks about the future, thinks about the past, grieves about a future that you've not lived, grieves about the past and feels stuck, and then just buries the head and just functions. So when you have a heartbreak, be it a loss of any kind that affects the heart, that's why they are amazing. That if you can avoid just zipping up and carrying on, you have this incredible, otherwise unseen opportunity to see beyond the trance for a while. It's like the Wizard of Oz and you're pulling the curtain back and you're seeing the reality, be it for a short while. And if you can sit with that and see that and feel the discomfort of it, that discomfort will motivate you and the unconscious to go, yeah, we can't be doing this anymore. It will put you at what I call a threshold point. The danger, Sarita, is when we're not doing that. The danger is the comfort zone. It's like when people leave prison, do you know they're at the highest risk of reoffending because prison felt so comfortable. They had identity there. They had status. They come out. The world's very different. That's a really useful analogy to think about, because we can make our lives so comfortable, and the attachment is just because it's a known zone, and the brain loves a known zone. So when you get comfortable, be wary of that, because it can make change fearful, and that's what you were grieving when you were talking about leaving. You're just releasing the fingers from an old prison, really, an old known zone, and that's where growth is. That's where all the opportunities are. So if the nervous system expands to be able to cope with the pain, it feels okay and doable. And that's dangerous, right? Because our prisons become kind of known zones equals safe to the unconscious. So we've got to like wake up and snap out of it. Breakups are amazing for that. It's an amazing duality and law of polarity. It's like anything that's negative, there's gold in it, because it might wake you up and allow you to have a moment of clarity. Go, okay, what's this showing me?
You essentially spun heartbreaks into a breakthrough opportunity. That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
I love that. That's such a unique and beautiful mindset shift for anybody that's been going through it, that's experienced it. And when you were talking about this, I kind of was thinking about two different types of people that I've encountered in my life. I've met people who have gone through heartbreak, no matter what it is, and have chosen to remain in like a victimhood place. And so choosing to kind of stay in, and what I think of as like this comfort zone of being in their own victimhood. This thing happened to me and the world is against me and I'm not moving forward because of that. And although I have a lot of empathy for anybody that goes through something that's life altering, because I've been through many different experiences, there is, because I've personally gone through my own type of change and alchemization and all these different parts of me, I am much more aware now of people that are choosing to be in a state of victimhood. And then there's that other aspect that you were talking about, is that it is an opportunity, this massive breakthrough that can occur when we are thrown up against, oftentimes against our own will. That's why I love tarot and like the Tower card. And if you're familiar with the Tower card, it's just oftentimes comes into our life where it's necessary. It's necessary to destroy the whole foundation completely, right? And to be able to just like with when they build new buildings, it's a challenge to rebuild buildings on top of old foundations. They usually will excavate, everything underneath and really start over again. And I kind of think about that with tower moments and these massive breakthroughs that can happen post a heartbreak. And so it's like we're forced into this position of alignment.
Yeah.
We're forced into it oftentimes against our will, but like you said, like it's because of that we probably most likely wouldn't have been necessarily in awareness, because we are so comfortable in our comfort zone. And I recognize this now because I was the one who initiated the breakup of my 8-year relationship. And I was met with quite frequently after maybe like 6 months to a year when I started sharing my story, people would come to me and say, "Oh my gosh, it's so courageous of you to do that." And for me, I didn't really think about it. I was like, I just broke up with somebody. You know how heartbreaking that is? That's so challenging. It's so hard. It's like I'm going through all the things. But I didn't realize that. I know now, retrospectively, walking away from something, actually taking the initiative because you're out of alignment and going through that massive breakthrough is the opposite, or I should say, kind of like the flip side of the person that actually chooses to stay in comfort zone and victimhood and things like that. And no shade to that person at all. If that's somebody that's listening, like I'm not trying to make you feel, any feelings of shame by any means, but I'm just saying that it's a duplicity thing that can happen. What you're talking about is like this comfort zone and moving into a massive breakthrough. So thank you so much for helping me even reframe that in my mind, because we've thought so often, we think of heartbreak as this like horrible, which it is, a horrible thing that's so challenging to come back from. And yet it's such a beautiful, like natural opportunity for us.
So much in everything that you've just said. I want to talk, please, if I can, about the fence between empowerment and victimhood. So interesting because we do it. I mean, I say we because I'm talking about me right now, and obviously clients, because we're human. There'll be times in our lives where we automatically have resources and ego states that we're comfortable with, and we're very empowered in those areas of our life. But then something might come along and push us, and it feels very unnatural in like a family area of life or a career area of life, and we'll go back into victimhood just in that area. But in other areas of life, we're very empowered, and we take choices that, move us forwards. So it's not that we're doing it fully all the time, 100% in one direction. There are like these 7 to 8 like life areas that we kind of like juggle, that have like a cat's cradle tension that we're always kind of like working between. I'd love to talk about this because it's so powerful. Because if you're listening to this and listening to what Sarita's just said about staying in a place that feels not right, but it's too scary to get out of right now, the fact that you're even aware of it or listening to what we're talking about, and intuitively there might be a little resonance twang to that is resonating with you inside. It's like something's not right. When I talked earlier about leaving that, it turned out to be a 13-year relationship. I should have left that relationship, if I'm going to use the word should, retrospectively. I should have left that relationship probably about 5 to 6 years earlier. And I didn't. I chose to stay. And interestingly, when I talked about not being able to have children, I actually had a growth in my uterus that had to be surgically removed. How metaphorical is that? That I'd grown. And I thought, and as soon as that happened, I was like, this is the physiological embodiment of the pain that I've not healed. I have to go and heal that at such a deep level and leave this relationship because it's not healthy for me anymore. I had to wait until I got that sick that I'd created that, like, don't leave it that late, ladies, Hear this.
I'm right there with you, Diane. I was the same way too.
It's hard for it was a fibroid, thank goodness, in the end, but they did think it was cancerous at the time. And I've had various health issues over the years, that have floored me as well. Like all these signs that I'd ignored, nullified, tried to push down, tried to cognitively talk away and kind of throw a little bit of therapy at the surface wasn't enough. I had to go super deep each time to clear these things out. And each time when you clear it and touch those places, you reclaim a part of yourself and come back into more alignment, by the way, and you get a deeper remembering. But I really want to talk again about this fence, victimhood versus empowerment, how we know we're victims versus how we know we're at cause and making choices that move us forward. There are a few signs. If you're on the victim side of the fence, you'll feel stuck. You'll typically have anxiety. You'll feel disempowered. You'll feel like you need to follow and need advice outside of you. it will feel like you're cornered and you'll be in blame mode. And so any area in your life where you're doing any of those things, there are others too, other signals, but if you're doing any of that right now, you're at what I would call feeling an effect and fully in victimhood and victim mode. That side of the fence you actually can't change from. So if somebody's coming to see me, they're typically on that side of the fence in their perspective and their thinking, which makes total sense. It's completely human, and we've all been there. And I've got tons of empathy for it. Like you were mentioning earlier, it's like, I get it. We do it. This is what we do because it's painful. However, our unconscious minds that's running us will take something called the quickest way to avoid. It's like the path of least resistance. So if we don't take responsibility, and if we hide in that, and if we go into victimhood, and if we blame, it means the unconscious mind's ducking out of having to heal it and expend that energy to change. And you can't change from that place. However, as soon as we start to take responsibility for the emotions we feel, how our body's responding, the perspective we have on something, regardless of how somebody else has behaved. And this is not about absolving people of their terrible, heinous behaviors. This is about, how is my body responding? How do I feel when I react like that? What are the signals I'm feeling within me? Because I'm creating those chemicals. I'm creating that perspective. And so it's keeping me stuck. But as soon as you start to shift that perspective, you start to take ownership. That's when you change. You can't change from victimhood. And immediately you get generative, positive emotions that take you from stuck state to feeling more empowered and like you have choice and you can change. And it is seemingly quite simple sounding, but that's a very hard gear shift. And so having the right kind of coaching that can take you out of arm stroking, victimhood, isn't that awful kind of like anchoring it in style of talking therapy often, coaching, dare I say, to really empowering, paradigm shifting. Coaching that's the first step to rapid change. Otherwise, you're going to be dragging your heels.
Yeah. I feel like from people like you and me who are in these spaces, who've been in these spaces for a while, I've hired coaches to support me in this. I've gone to therapy, traditional therapy, more progressive therapy. But I realize for me, what has been the most supportive has been when I'm able to shift on the subconscious level. Really, hypnosis, huge fan, hypnosis, anything that has to do with somatics and deep level work, that has been the most supportive for me. And I find that with that, the modality may look kind of the same across the board, but how it's approached per client and things like that makes it super unique for that person. And so that's what I really love about the work that you are doing, is it's not like a one size fits all cookie cutter. And I like that we are moving away from that in the personal development and therapy and coaching spaces, is because people are realizing, and people that are supporting other people on this, that there is, yes, an equation, just like you said. Like, it sounds simple in theory, just like change your mindset sounds simple in theory, right? But it's so much more deeper than that. And so what I love about what you are doing and what I'm doing, and more people are getting on board with this, is creating systems and processes and tools for people that are going to be unique to them and what they need, right? And that's a beautiful thing in itself, because there is deeper level shifts that get to happen within processes, especially when we're talking about like heartbreak and breakups and things like that.
With the hypnosis, it's a key to a door to an unfathomably complex machine. And so it's about knowing where to go in that machine and which tool to use and how hard to tap. That's the skill. So this is what I focus on now, working with women through the heartbreak transformation, is teaching you that you're always in hypnosis, actually 96% of the day. And it's how to recognize that and how to utilize the keys that we're given and not really typically taught, and these soul signal keys that I kind of identified, which are really cool, and to give you those keys so that you can find the route to yourself via them. But when you're guided properly, to find that root cause, it's a game changer. Trying to do that on your own is wild. I mean, I was a therapist and coach, I was trying to do it right. It took me 3 years and I know what I'm doing, and I'm doing it a long time. And so it's really hard to see your own blind spot, I suppose, if you want to put it that way. If you drive a car, and it's really hard to see your own blind spot. So having somebody on the outside understanding the paradigms and looking at it is going to save you so much pain, so much resistance. And our time's not refundable, right? And time. Yes. And what I notice with women as well in this sweet spot is you'll get this panic sense of, oh my God, I feel like I'm running out of time. I feel like I'm running out of time to get my life in order. So trying to do it yourself is you're wasting your time. And you might get there, but it might take you a really, really long time. Do you have it? Do you have that time?
Right. Yeah. And that's what people like you and me are here for, is to help collapse that time. So we don't have to put more energy into things, and we can put energy into ourselves, and then we can become, that's what I'm learning a lot on this nomadic lifestyle, is how important my energetic frequency really is when it comes to my healing and putting, so I can show my best, so I can be my best, so I can put my best foot forward, so I can have other people in my life see me for who I authentically am, not the crumble down, heartbroken version of me. Not that I have a lot of love for her, right? I went through that phase, and at the same time, like realizing that I'm worth it, that I can invest time and energy into things to help me to put my best foot forward in other aspects of my life.
That's beautiful. You become a leader. You become a leader of your own life, Sarita. I think we're craving leaders and leadership, but feminine leadership. And feminine leadership is the alchemization and the realignment to ourselves. And then we're sat in that powerful feminine place and recognizing that actually we create from the dark, from the womb space. We create from that, the void and the connection to the divine. We're extremely powerful. It's been very, very much distorted, of course, because it's terrifying. The feminine is just, it's been quietened, hasn't it? And it's starting to rise. So all this work is really important.
Feminine awakening. I'm very excited to see more to come on that. Like I said, it's your work that you are doing that helps ignite that feminine energy again. It was never lost, but it's rediscovering that and becoming that spark and having that fire to hold. Because as we heal the self, especially us women, the impact that we have with our children, our family, the other people, like it's massive. We're very community based. So yes, I'm very looking forward to seeing what occurs over the next few years when it comes to the rise of feminine energy and more people getting in to alignment with their true authentic selves. So thank you so much, Diane, for all that you've shared. I absolutely love how you articulated examples. People can even visualize certain things throughout the episode. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Where can people find you? How can people work with you? If you have any workshops or anything coming up, please go ahead and share, that information so we can, and we'll make sure to put all that in the show notes as well.
Oh, great. Thank you. Well, how you can find me is, first of all, there's my social media, which is Diane Beck Coaching. So Diane with one N, Beck Coaching. And that's my Instagram, and also my YouTube, which is where I do a lot of my kind of discussions on this and talk about Heartbreak a lot. And you'll see a lot of the women's responses too, and amazing ways of watching women reconnect with their soul. There's a few of those which are really moving to watch. So if you kind of want examples of this, you can have a look at that. And that's my website as well, dianebeckcoaching.com. So that's where you can read more about what I do. And if you're interested, you can get some free downloads from the website. There's also a download that I'm going to give Sarita a link to as well, which is just unique for your listeners. And that's going to absolutely help kind of clear the whirlwind or the storm and just allow you to come back to yourself and quieten and begin to listen to that inner voice. And so that's a really lovely way in. So it's a guided meditation that is created that you can listen to, and you'll have that link, Sarita.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Yes, I'll make sure to share that with everybody. We'll have that in the show notes. Thank you so much again, Diane. Like I said, I would love to have a continued conversation with you. Maybe there could be a part 2 next year sometime. But thank you so much again, not only for being a guest on the podcast, but the amazing, beautiful work that you're doing, because it is so close to my heart and so close to home from my own personal experience. And I know other people, I'm sure, listening have had personal experiences as well that are similar to this. So again, that's amazing work. And I really, really appreciate you so much. And
Oh,
I love your energy that you bring to the podcast.
oh,
Thanks
thank
again.
you, Sarita. Thank you so much. I've really enjoyed it, and likewise, I've really loved your energy, and I've loved our chat. I'd love to do a part 2, maybe next year.
Amazing. I love that. And thank you so much, everyone, for being here. And as always, keep being the amazing you that you are. Take care. Hey, love. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode. If you adored what you heard, it would mean the world to me if you took a moment to leave a review on the platform you are listening to this episode on. By doing this, you are helping my mission to impact other women with their healing journeys. If you aren't already following me on social media, make sure to connect with me at Sarita Wellness to get your weekly dose of inspiration. I can't wait to be with you in the next episode, but in the meantime, keep being the amazing you that you are.